Hello. We are having our panel discussion. I didn't think I was coming back, but I've been requested to come back. So we are having a panel discussion. They are going to address several issues amongst ourselves. The first panelist on my extreme right, sorry, my extreme left, is Claudia Onsare Nyantika. She's a lecturer at Technical University of Kenya, and she works in the Department of Linguistics and Literary Studies. So be sure we are well covered when it comes to academics, paper writing, research, and all that. We are well covered. Just say hi to the congregation, so they hear the voice. Okay. There's someone who was given the certificates to kindly take them to Martha. Yeah, the certificates. Please, we want to leave with our certificates here. The next presenter is Mamo Nyabochwa. Mamo is a business development professional, a seasoned insurance specialist. She has worked in Tier 1 or Tier 1 insurance companies, including Old Mutual, Heritage, ICA Lion, and now she's working at a Tier 1 bank. She also runs a small entity called Top Level on the side, and she's also a member of SDA Lavington. Do we welcome her? Yeah, Mamo, just wave and say hi.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Mama. Thank you.
The next panelist is Robert Agufana Belle. He is a prolific writer, award-winning TED speaker, and global thought leader who is passionate about empowering individuals to think big, realize their full potential, and crush the construct of conformity to achieve their wildest dreams. Pure English. And having won the TED Global Idea, I think you'll tell us what TED Global Idea, or TED, yeah, TED Global Idea. So mnasikia hata Kiingereza imenipita kidogo. Idea Search 2021 competition. His TED Talk on finance and emotions went viral, amassing over 500,000 views in just 2 days. Recognized as one of the Africa's continent icons as a top 40 under 40, Robert has won numerous awards for his work, including the 2019 Advocate of the Year Award affiliate, the 2020 Brand Advocate of the Year, and the 2021 Advocate of the Year by ACCA. And he has also served on ACCA's Kenya's National Advisory Council for the past 3 years, as well as a member of ACCA's Global Forums for SMEs. So, Robert, just say hello and wave.
All right. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so you see the quality of panel that we have. Eh? So the next presenter, who actually is going to be the moderator for the panel, she's Purity Museo. She's a member of SDA Lavington Church. She's an award-winning news anchor at KTN. How many of us have seen her on TV? Yeah, what was Citizen? Yeah, she's an award-winning news anchor at KTN, and she's a health and science journalist. She's a 2020 Presidential Award winner, a 2021 African Journalist of the Year, author of You Will Overcome. She's the author of You Will Overcome. Masters in Communication and Media Studies from Daystar University. She has a bachelor's in Communication and Journalism from Moi University, and above all, she's an entrepreneur. May we welcome Purity Museo by a clap. And she will say hello as she takes us through this second part. Karibu.
Hello, everyone. It's such a great honor to be before all of you, young professionals, aspiring young professionals. Purity Museo, and you've heard who we have today For those who are here from morning, it's been such an experience. How many of us have been here since morning? By show of hands, here. But we cannot get enough because they say, as a young person, we should always be, hungry. Hungry and even angry, okay? Like you're angry, why can't I be the one doing this? Why can't I get where I want to be? And hungry for more. So we cannot have enough. I'm seated in the midst of great women and man right here, and we are going to have awesome conversation. Especially, you've heard their titles, and I know there are so many questions. I want to be like them. Maybe there's someone who wants to be a brand ambassador. There's someone who wants to be a business leader, okay? There's someone who even wants to be an academia. If you do not want to be them, I'm sure you also want to know how did they get where they are, right? So we have so many questions, and we are going to try and answer them in an hour's time, all right? So let's be attentive. Please, you'll have an opportunity to even ask questions. So let's listen to what they have to say, because even as Christians, we want to be like Jesus, right? We always are after something. And as long as we are living, we always aspire to be like someone or that role model. But even before you get to have a role model, again, you have to look to be the role model. I'm sure you must have one, whether someone you've ever met in person or someone you watch on YouTube or you even follow on Instagram. I know young people, we have role models on social media, right? That's true. You have a role model you've never met, you've never known. So young professionals, this is an opportunity for us to sit with even employers. These are employers as well. So you never know. You might walk out with a job or even with, she's from Stanbic, so there's money at the bank. If you're having a business idea, it could be an easier way of getting financing and funding for your project. So let's be open-minded. And once again, a round of applause for our panelists this afternoon. Once again, I welcome you. And we've had your introduction, you've been introduced, but we want to get to know what you do. Let's begin from there, okay? We only have one gentleman in this panel, so let's begin with you, sir. Yes.
Right, so I say what I do?
You say what you do.
Okay, so hi guys, my name is Robert again. I am a champion of creativity, ambassador of wellness, and a pursuer of excellence. That's who I am as a being. What I do is that I help dreamers to arise from their slumber with courage by awakening their untapped, dormant energy so that they can shine the glorious light. That's what I do. So I work with dreamers, people who have an idea and who want to shine their light.
All right. And
when I want to fit into crowds, so people don't look at me the way they're looking at me like now, I am an accountant.
All right, thank you so much for that. Let me also talk to you, Mamo. You are a business leader at, let me just correctly say, business development manager at Stanbic Bank. Did you just, wake up and found yourself where you are, or how has the journey been like for you? How much time, how many years did it take for you to have that title? You are a manager, yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Actually, I remember I was telling someone I'm not coming here because on the capacity of business development manager at the bank, because that will entail another process on its own for PR and all that. But what I will want to say is, on my career journey, I started my job like any other person. I tarmacked, I delivered my CV by hand, actually, to every organization at Upper Hill, from Britam to Old Museo to CBA, and even then to Stanbic when I was starting. So, and I started by selling insurance. I know most people don't like being called for insurance. True or false?
True.
Yeah. That is where I started. And so I used to sell education policy with a very good title called Personal Financial Advisor. And actually, some people are very grateful for the products I gave them, including myself. It gave me a chance to travel the world when it matured. I was saving for a child who never happened. So anyway, yeah, being where I am now, of course, is not what I'd seen myself. You know, I'm those guys who have a plan for everything, career and all that. So by now, as per my life plan, I was supposed to be a general manager in a listed company. So we always have that. But what I'll say is always be agile, change as life changes. Give it your best. So in short, that is what I'm doing, giving it my best, because we are just stewards. What we have at our hands is what the Lord has allowed us to have. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. And we'll also be speaking with Claudia. I'll ask you, some people will end up, like for example, when probably you wanted to be a doctor and then you ended up as a teacher. But is this what you wanted to be since you were young, and why? Why teaching?
Just wanted to write. Jason doesn't want me to talk. What did I do to you? Okay. So, hi, Jason. I always wanted to write from when I was a kid. That's the one thing I was always passionate about. My father, on the other hand, looked at me and saw an educator in me. And he always pushed me, even in church here, in pulpit. I am just a church girl. All my gifts have been developed on many pulpits around the country, you know. But my father wanted me to be a teacher, although I wanted to study. So initially I wanted to study journalism, what you studied. My father said no. So I went to school, and then when I finished, I did a postgraduate diploma in journalism, which is what I wanted. So I finished my first degree and went back to my father and told him, now I'm done. Can I do what I wanted to do? So he said, fine. So he paid for me. I did a postgraduate diploma. Then I went to KBC to work as a producer, and I used to do Grapevine, if you remember. It was an entertainment. That's what I did. And I used to be paid 8,000 shillings. I'm a firstborn. I looked at the money that I was earning at the time, and I thought that I wanted more because all my brothers were in school, and I wanted to assist in whatever they were doing. So I left. At the time when I left, I worked at KBC for 2.5 years. I left, went back to school for my master's. At the same time, I went to work as a communication manager for a company known as Woodbridge Group. When I finished, I started looking for work. I was home for about 6 or 7 months and with nothing to do, because I had left my KBC job, and the guy at Woodbridge Group had told me to choose between my master's and work. Because when I was writing my thesis, I became very busy. It was very demanding. And he told me to choose between earning and earning my master's. I chose my master's, so I resigned. He gave me some money. I went to Tanzania. My friend was getting married there. I went to attend his wedding. I stayed there for a week to calm down my mind so that I can come back and finish my thesis. I did, finished, came back, and graduated. Mm-hmm. Then I got a job at the Technical University of Kenya as a part-time lecturer. The rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for the introductions, which also helps us understand your journey, you know, where you're coming from, how you had to struggle before you got to where you are, and how you had, again, to have some factors that really tried to direct on who you want to become, all right? But trust me, even journalists are teachers. Teachers are journalists. So, yes, so you're still on the right track. You know, we've had award-winning social media. And you know, what you do, Belle, is more of adjusting to the times that we are in right now. But let's talk about your journey. How did you start? Most people know you because of what went viral. They know you because of who you are now. But did you just wake up and say, I know when I do this, it's gonna win me awards in the future? Or what was your passion? Why did you have to do what you're doing right now?
Well, I can say I never had a passion. The only passion I had was to become either a professional basketball player or a professional tennis player. And that's all I did growing up. When we were young, we moved to the Caribbean, so I grew up in the Caribbean, in case you hear an accent, but I couldn't accent. I'm just a Kenyan. So we grew up in the Caribbean, and that was just my aspiration, just to play professional sports. Then I was playing for the national team. I got injured. There was no government support. I think we know those cases. I went into depression, and I just didn't feel like there was anything else in life. So I really started now just doing social experiments. I was like, you know what, I'm going to just try the weirdest things, the wildest things. I didn't have whatever. In high school, I did accounting. My lecturer said, I aced it the first time. I finished the course study in 1 year in high school. So I was just chilling, because I was like, I was just out to prove that we all don't have to follow one line. Luckily, I developed photographic memory. So I used to go to exams, and I'll even just answer and say, the answer to this is on page 27, paragraph 3, on the left side of the page. Like, I was just cheeky. So I finished university, etc., started my career. 2001, I was selling computers. Just like how Mamo said, start in sales. By the way, start in sales, character development. I'm telling you, it builds you. So those of you who don't have a job, go to any insurance company and say you want to sell insurance. They'll give you a job. Do it. You'll learn. So I did that. But I was always just looking at the trends in the market. I was always looking out to where the world was going. I used to just read reports, read newspaper. There was no internet. And then I got a mentor. I think that was the change. So in 2001, my mentor told me, there's this thing called Microsoft Office. Get on it. Do a certification, you'll be an expert. Because I have a certificate from high school about typewriting. I did typewriting as a subject. We didn't do computers. So I learned, I went, registered, I did my certification in Microsoft Office. I was partly sponsored. I have my certificate signed by Bill Gates. And then as I was selling computers, I met a businessman. I was telling him the future is accounting, computerizing systems. He said, what did you study in school? Accounting. Okay, come be my accountant at the supermarket, computerize my books. So that's how I became an accountant. I was never a junior accountant. I was promoted straight to accountant, straight like that. So I was an accountant. I computerized the books of accounts. The auditor came. He didn't even know how to audit the computer. He didn't even know how to turn on the computer. He was doing this to the mouse, trying to, move the cursor. And that was the history throughout. I graduated, went to another company, computerized, and I was just with the trends. Moved back to Kenya. When I moved to Kenya, I worked for a major multinational company, and I helped do what is called machine learning. Maybe allow me a minute to step back. Before I came back to Kenya, I worked for a telecoms company. And I introduced products, what we know today in the Kenyan market as Okoha, Jahazi, all these kind of small facilities that Safaricom had. So I had introduced that in the Caribbean in 2007. So I said, I think it's time to move back to Kenya. So I came back to Kenya thinking Safaricom would just hire me and, I will absorb. No. It didn't work like that. Yeah. You come back home and you have to learn so much. So I was lost. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to look for a job. I'm just going to whatever. I don't know how. I was just in a mat one day going to town. I don't know. I was going to the cyber cafe. And I met someone, and she was like, oh, I know this company who is hiring. I was like, I'm done with applying for jobs. Kifika, your stage, you're like, I don't want to apply for a job. Unless someone calls me today, start today. I'm not applying. So I was just being a rebel. And she said, you know what? I'm going to send your CV. I was like, okay, you send it. Then I got a call. Someone is in Russia who interviewed me and said, you're going to work for this multinational company. We're starting a new project. We don't know how to do this computerized stuff. Come work for us. So I automated what you call today procure to pay. Procure to pay is where a supplier can send an invoice. It gets scanned by a system, robotics process automation. It reads the invoice, date, etc., auto-captures it, posts it, pay. That process used to take 45 days. I got the process down to 7 days and then to 7 hours in a span of 1 year. So I got bored, decided I need to get a new challenge, and the new challenge was to start my own business. I mentioned my career starting in 2001 for a reason, because I had an inclination that the accountant needed to become creative. Because I was like, how come I can do this and no one else can? So I was just inquisitive. 2015, the World Economic Forum released the top 10 skills that everyone should have by 2020. And number one was creativity. And the number one job at risk was bookkeeping and accountancy. So I was like, that's it. That's my call from God. I started advocating about creativity for the accountant, which led me to writing this first book. It's called Blow the Lid Off, about how we can all be creative, especially someone like an accountant and lawyer. Now that just spiraled into all kind of things. My mentor told me, try public speaking. I could not public speak to save my life. Tried it. I was told, try to get on a TED stage. Tried it in Kenya, didn't work. I tried the major TED competition where over 25,000 people apply, made it to the final, won. My talk went viral, and now what I do is I advocate for SMEs through ACCA. So as an accountant, I sit on the board in Kenya and the Global Forum, where during COVID, what happened is that we wrote notes to government to give moratoriums and grants to small businesses so that they can continue. So that's what got me to here. It was pure experimentation, pushing the envelope, trying, asking for advice, and that's where I am today.
Experimentation was not passion, and from what I got from what you said, not being hired by Safaricom was a turn-off, and the turning point for you, maybe, that's just maybe, but thank you for that. I'll be getting back to you, and you'll be telling us whether you are financially prepared to do that, and how you survived. All right. Again, speaking to you, Mamo, off stage, you said that you came to Nairobi to study something different, and then you found yourself into the world of business, and you're really doing great on this stage. So was it again, because she also mentioned that she wanted to do journalism, but the parents thought, no, she would better do something different. So for you, is it an advantage that you took, that you're here in Nairobi alone and now you want to do business, or were you passionate into going into business? What happened?
What I will say is I'm the kind of person that who believes you're in a place or whatever happens to you happens for a reason. And as far as we have been given free will, you know, the Lord never forces you to do anything. You have that free will. So there's always a choice for you to make. Yeah, so I came to Nairobi. I was to join UON. The strike happened. I found myself on Gong Road, and I decided I'm going to Africa Nazarene. Of course, unfortunately, my parents were not prepared for that financially. So you have to also try and see how you can be able to support that. So at that moment also, I started doing small business here and there, buy things from easily, sell in campus and try to make some money. And then, of course, also there's the part of doing assignments for guys to be paid for. So that also used to bring some income in. But when we talk about business, essentially, my mom was a business lady, and now she's retired. So, and of course, anytime I'll close school, I'll be there assisting her. Be it carrying those crates of sodas or even doing weighing for sugar and all that. So I used to be there. And I'm grateful for those lessons that I learned from making the profits, stock taking and all that. You know, those are things that even when I do my own side hustles and I have to do those things, they really come into effect. And then those things were able to do proper character development in terms of, because one thing I'll tell you about business, if you're all aspiring to be entrepreneurs, most of you, consistency. It is very, very critical. And then you have to be always, what is the trend like? And then when we were even in campus now, when we are studying, of course, there's some compulsory courses that were touching on law. I will look at them and I'm like, was I going to study all this? Then I'm like, I thank God I was led here. You know, when you look back, you're like, oh, okay, I'm glad I did this and all that. Yeah, I like making the most out of everything. And so even when I found myself in selling insurance, I had to ensure that I became the best in that. So, and I ended up doing that. Till now, actually, even where I am now, all I do is insurance. The only difference is I deal mostly with corporates or organizations. But as you are there, apart from being persistent and consistent in what you do, of course you have to be creative. You have to think outside the box, because times are changing daily. Things are changing. Everywhere there are new trends, be it in insurance, be it in our day-to-day life and all that. So when it comes to business, something about business, it's exciting. And there's something that never dies. Every time you close a deal, there's a high it gives you. And you know you always yearn for that, so you keep on going.
Yeah. All right, and thank you for that. At least your parents were supportive when you just decided to change your mind from doing law into now doing a course in business. It was the same story for you. I mean, your parents, Claudia, wanted you to do something different. So what happens? Because most young people find themselves, this is what I want to do, especially that time when parents felt that journalism was not really a good career for their children. So you want to do this, but then your parents feel that this is what I want you to do. Again, it's your passion. How do you respectfully ensure that you incorporate all that? Yeah.
Our parents mean well because of their backgrounds. My father was the first person, but my father was like a light in his home, all right? And so he wanted stability for himself and his children. So when when our parents are advising us to stick to certain professions, it's because they know from experience how the world works, and so they want something that you study that is going to give them money. My father did not have the luxury of taking me to study the cello for my master's and doctorate. My babies can afford that luxury. My father didn't. So when he was advising me to study something he wanted me to do something he's sure I'm gonna earn a living from, whether he is there or not. So many of these people who are listening to us today are in that situation. May they understand that parents come from a place of love, concern, and experience. The thing would be to advise them, to tell them, when you're passionate about something and you tell somebody, they think they can let you. When I went back to my father after my degree and told him, now pay for me to do something else, he agreed because he saw that I was passionate about this thing, and he knew that I would find my way because I was passionate about these things I was talking about. But may I explain that it comes from a place of experience and love. They don't want you to go back from where they've brought their families from. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Let me pick from where we left about the most important thing that young people or people should have by 2020, you said, was creativity. And you finished by saying that you realized that is what God wanted you to know. Most young people pray and ask, how do I know what I'm passionate about? Okay, what do I know what God wants me to do career-wise? For you, how did you know actually that now this is what God wanted me to do? Did you allow yourself because you went to a global meeting and you realized this is where we need to be? So how did you know, how was that convincing that this is indeed where the Lord wants me to be?
And that's a very good question. I can tell you how I did it. It's not necessarily a prescription. I'm describing how it works for me, but I'll try to prescribe. I studied accounting, right? And I'm an accountant. And many people misunderstand accountancy to be about money. But accountancy is about accountability. It's about the story. It's about writing a story, telling a story of a business. It's not about money. So I looked at my own life. And I was like, what story is my life telling me? It pains me when I come to sessions like this, and the sessions in the morning were wonderful, where we come, we listen. It's good that it's being recorded. But what's more important is, what application do you have to your own life? Are you writing notes? Are you taking a screenshot? Are you taking a video? Because we go and say, oh, that was a wonderful story. But what lesson did you learn from my story that you can apply today? So that was always my challenge. What new knowledge have I been given that I can apply today? And then I learned to look back. So I kept looking back at my life and seeing the trends. When am I most happy? What opportunities seems come finding me, even if I hate them? What do I absolutely hate? Because your observation is your obligation. That's how I discovered how God was speaking to me. What I observe is what God is obligated. He's putting it in my presence. And for you to change that mindset, you need to be very conscious. I was very conscious of my life, because change comes from consciousness. You cannot change if you're not conscious. Most of us, the psychologist tells us, we operate 70 to 90% of our life at an unconscious level. Subconscious level, sorry. We're just going through life. So I started to write down. I wrote everything. I just write. I went today, I met so-and-so. This is how I felt. I just kept writing and writing and writing all the observations that I had, so that when the signal was there, I could get it. That's what I did. I just kept writing, look at it, review, and then I got people to tell me. I ask Purity, what do you see that's good about me? You know, you have those hard questions. You know, you ask, what do you think I'm good at? Or what do you think I can look at? I ask mentors, where do you see life going? You know, sit, network. I used to just sit with the older people and ask them all kind of stuff. Allow me to tell you a quick story about that. A quick story. So when I was
Even before the quick story, what were they saying you were good at?
So they were saying that you challenge, you question, you don't accept things as they are. They didn't give me the words. They didn't give me the language. This is how, when I introduced myself, I said I'm a champion of creativity, an ambassador of wellness, and a pursuer of excellence. I looked through my entire life, and I kept seeing these themes recurring. If you give me something to do, I will do it in a creative way. I think people who serve with me in church will know that. Right, Jason? Yeah? I'll champion creativity. Then I will make sure that I push for our wellness as a team or as an individual. And then I will pursue excellence. I will want to do it to the best of my ability. So let me give you a quick story about that, if you'll allow me.
Right.
About observation, just sitting with people. So I was working for a car dealership. And when you work around, if you hang around money, you start to like money, right? So I was working around cars. I started to like the idea of owning a car. So I was like, okay, this is a good idea. And this showroom was selling brand new cars with plastic on it, plastic. So, sometimes during my lunch break, I used to just go sit in one, visualize, that's the kind of life I live. People say, oh, that's a waste of time. Why will I do that? It works for me because and that's why I say I work with dreamers to arise from their slumber. I don't just get those words out of the air. I look at what I was doing. So I sat in the car, and I used to ask the older guys there, how can I own one of these cars? Then I realized I'm asking financial advice from a salesperson. Not that a salesperson can't give me financial advice, but then I realized, okay, I'm asking the wrong people. They kept telling me, oh, I worked for 20 years, I saved this amount of money. I was like, I don't have 20 years. What are you telling me? Okay, that's good for you. How can I do it? And then I realized that I'm asking people to tell me what to do in my own life. So I ask, and I said, okay, how much discount did you get? I started working the numbers. If I was to afford this car, I will have to pay. I was just, again, going back to the challenge. I gave myself a challenge. The staff told me, oh, our boss doesn't give discounts. I was like, why? We don't know. So what did he say when you asked him? Oh, no one has ever asked. I was like, so how do you know he doesn't give discount? That's how we found it. So what I did, I started running numbers. I went, spoke to my boss, locked the door behind me. I said, boss, I need to discuss something with you. And I gave him the price I want to pay for the car. He started laughing. He's like, what is this? I'm going to fire you. I was like, yeah, it's okay, but you're going to sell me this car this price. He said, why should I sell you? Well, as your star employee, how would you feel if Monday morning I come with your competitor's car parked outside? What do you think customers would feel? How do you think customers would feel? He started paying attention. The phone started ringing. I went behind his desk, plugged out the phone. Sat down, I said, I need your attention here. So I pitched my case. I had prepared. I had pitched my case and told him the value I'm adding to it and why he should make this investment in me. Anyway, long story short, he signed the contract and I bought the car and he said, you know why I'm giving you this? You are the first person in 25 years to ever come and ask for a discount. And not only did you just ask for a discount, you demanded for a big one. So I'm giving it to you as a lesson for all these other staff to know. All they have to do is ask.
Yeah.
And I bought my first car at 19 years, brand new spanking car with a plastic on it. When I went home, my mom called the cops because she thought I stole it. But anyway.
Ask and shall be given unto you.
Yes.
That's
Inquire, look for it. So that's the long answer to your question. How do you know when God is speaking to you? He's not going to tell you plain out, take this step. Sometimes he does. But you also have to just challenge. Take a step of faith.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Let's talk about the young people. You are a business development manager. You are an employer by itself. Okay. So we've seen even on social media, young people being accused of not being patient, being accused of not crafting their CV the right way. You know, we even saw, we were joking right there was a young person who said, who sent a CV to an employer, and they said that my father told me to send you this CV. I mean, that is how young people are asking for a job. Is this part of the reason why they are not getting jobs? How they are presenting their case to the employer?
I'm not an employer, as in I'm not going to give anyone a job per se, because I don't do that. But the most I can do is I refer people. And of course I have HR friends and all that. And I mean, to do a service to yourself when, assuming I've referred you somewhere, go out of the way, make it the most of it. Just because you've been referred, or not even that, or maybe your father's made a call, or your mother or your sister. I mean, at the end of the day, what you need to do is give it your best. Have I been referred before? Yes, I have. Actually, there's a time I quit employment. That is when I registered my company. That's around 10 years ago. Then I went, with my registered company, I was doing branding and marketing. So I went to one of the people to do that, and then an elder from the church saw me, and then he told me, "What are you doing here?" "I'm doing ABCD." Then he told me, "You're too young to start your own company. Mm-hmm. You need experience still. And if you want, you can be doing both, your company and doing this." So, and I think he thought I will not even send the CV. He actually gave me the seat in that office, he gave me his computer, told me, "Send your CV, apply for that job. Here's the email." Mm-hmm. I wrote an email, I applied for the job from his email, from his laptop. Yeah. That's how I went back to employment. After a month of not being employed. Because I think I'd quit on Fool's Day, and this was to... This is towards... actually, the reason why I quit is, you know, when you're in... business development, what happens is it's all about numbers most of the time. And my employer then wanted me to work on Sabbath. And I could not understand, why am I coming to work 9 to 12 on a Sabbath instead of me being in church or resting? Will the 3 hours make a difference on my numbers? So every Monday I found out we were fighting. So that day I just decided to quit. It was 1st of April, which is a Fool's Day. Actually, they thought it was yeah. So the following day I'm called, "Where are you? You didn't come back to work yesterday." But I was like, "But I quit. And you took the HR as my letter." So after a month of being out, within that month I'd registered a company to do branding and marketing. So that's how I ended up on I went back to employment. Through that person in church. He worships in South Church, I think, till to date. So at the end of the day, what happened here is I had to sit down and apply for that job. I do not say, here's my CV the way, as in here's my CV, I've been asked to send it by so and so. You see, even if the person is going to give a word for me, I have to be able to show up and make the most out of it. Because that person is not going to be there at the interview. And the worst mistake will be for someone to give you a job because you are referred, and then when you are there, you don't deliver. You know, you'll have spoiled that person's name, and then that person might not be able to refer others in future. So in short, going to your question, what I'll say is, number one, there are so many apps that can help you write your CVs. Go out of the way. We are a generation that has a lot of media access. Network. Even if you can't network physically. I mean, there's so many people who I've connected with on LinkedIn that I have no idea who they are. And some have even seen opportunities and have said, "I've applied for this, do you know so and so? I can seize your connection. Can you put in a word for me?" I mean, those are very easy conversations to have. because they have already done some bit or some work into it. So basically is what are we putting into it? You can't be given everything. You have to go out of the way. Thanks.
Okay, and I'll be getting back to you, especially you'll tell us, you've interacted with both the Generation X, Millennials, and the Zs. Is it the use of the emoji that is making them, lazy to do all this, or the pressures of life? But before then, let me talk to Claudia. You interact with students, okay? And is this because when I was in school, we used to be taught how to write a CV. You are a teacher, you are a lecturer. Where is the problem? Is it the institutions of learning? Our parents, of course, have never been part of us applying for jobs. Yes, they'll tell you, I want you to do this, but most of the time is what you learn. So where are young people getting all this kind of information that you need? And you've also worked for the government. And there's also a notion out there that, for example, to get to KBC, you must know someone, you must bribe, you must do 1, 2, 3, and 4. Where are we getting all these perceptions from? And again, why are we here as young people that we cannot express ourselves even when we are looking for a job?
I want to say that there is absolutely nothing wrong with Kenyan Gen Z. Each generation always looks at the one that comes after them as an anomaly, like freaks of nature, like there's something wrong with these kids. There is nothing wrong with these people. They just have a different way of doing things. What I would want to tell them is to put a little excellence into their difference. So there's nothing wrong with a lot of the under 25s who are listening to us here. They just think differently. For instance, like the people who are younger than me who've just come into academia right now, they are doing their masters to become graduate assistants. One thing about them is that they're insisting to have a work-life balance. The older professors don't have a work-life balance. It's been work, 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 work. They come to 60, 65, 70, they've retired, and they have nothing to retire to. Nothing to retire to. So the young people who are coming into academia right now want to retire to something. They want to hike over the weekends, they want to get married and raise children, they want to travel the world, they want to do a lot in addition to academia. Remember, academia is deeply demanding from an individual. So I want to say that there's nothing wrong with them. I just want them to be excellent in how they do their thing. You asked me something about
then knowing. I also tied that with the young people out here think that for you, they limit themselves and feel that this particular field is for specific people. For instance, for me to get into government, I must know people, I must bribe. Is that the case?
Let me tell you 2 stories very quickly. I love stories. I was in this church many years ago. So the first, let me talk about Mamo first. I hadn't come to church for 5 years. I think I knew things, so I wasn't practicing Christianity for about 5 years. I thought that God wasn't. Now I know for sure. I know so much. I know that God is, and I don't need anybody's evidence. Story for another day. So I'm dating this guy, and he tells me, in town, there's something called Global Youth Day. My nieces are going, so I want you to go with them. I said, fine, I'll go. I go to town and I found a guy I had studied with called George. George was with Mamo. Mamo invited me to Lavington SDA Church. I had been coming here with my mother. I come in, when she wakes me up, on days I feel like if it's my birthday, if it's Christmas, I come with her to church. And then Mamo invited me. And I've never left church to date. She invited me, she was with George. I met them at that global thing. Then following week, I was in church. After that, we went to Olekerage for a youth retreat. She took me, I was teaching at that time as a part-time lecturer at the Technical University of Kenya. Mama told me, there's a lady I sell insurance to at Multimedia University. She's friends with the lady who's in charge of the journalism department, so I'm gonna take you there. So I went with Mamo, and that's how I got extra classes at Multimedia University. Then, I used to come here in church and do Sabbath school. differently from how other people did it, because that's how my mind is. I don't have what you call a normal mind. My mind is different. Yeah, I mean, people say that. I don't care. I am comfortable with my different mind, my different quirky, weird mind. I used to do Sabbath school here. Daisy Salifu would challenge me and we would come up with ideas of doing Sabbath, and I used to love it. I haven't done those things in many years now. Please don't ask those many questions. But, so one day I meet Professor Akuno at Technical University of Kenya. She tells me, hi, what's your name? I've seen you in church, yeah. You do so well during Sabbath school. What are you doing here? Oh, I teach. I'm a part-time lecturer. You are. Please bring me your CV. 6 months later, I interviewed and I got my job, my current job at the Technical University of Kenya. Now, there's one man I know. He's called God. And I don't limit him. And me, I don't go begging to God, because he says himself that he owns the world, and he's the one who gives me, he gave me the giftings I have, and I have to use them, all right? So I was at the right time. So it's about being at the right time and the right place. Yes, people are going to hold your hand. No one is going to see success in this world without being held, but you must lean into knowing whose you are and who you are, and to know that in this world you will succeed whether you know somebody or you don't know. If you think that you are going to get, and I don't blame them. In this country, it seems as though they are children of lesser gods. It does seem so. People have stories that I went for this interview and this other person got the job because the uncle works in that organization. And that becomes your story. I want to disabuse that. But being at the right time, at the right place, making great networks, because you don't know, you could be doing your Sabbath school things. You don't, at that time, I was a part-time lecturer. It's not a monthly thing. I used to be paid like every 6 months, sometimes after a year, and then I have to organize my finances like that, and this was difficult. I'm a firstborn. And then somebody saw me and held my hand. I don't know, man. You know, I love stories. Baby, I probably haven't answered your question.
All right. And of course, we shall be talking about that. I mean, God shall provide. What am I supposed to do, even as the Lord provides? Okay?
Turn off the limitations on God from your mind.
All right. Let's rest this issue of young people, Generation Z. Is it the other generation that I do not want to mention? I'm part of it. Are we being judgmental? Are we not trying to? Because she said that there's nothing wrong with the generation. They're just different. So is it kind of misunderstanding? Or again, do they need to try to be excellent in what they do? Please, an advice for that.
All right. I agree with what Claudia is saying, because each generation has to be different, because the times have changed. I'll answer your question about the CV as an employer for myself, because I hire people and so on, but I also sit on panels where we interview people. Can I see the hands of those who are looking for a job actively? Thank you. You see, this is good to be assertive. It's good to be assertive. Who are looking for jobs? Can I see your hands? You're not sure? Okay, you might want to start writing. Let me speak to you. So I'll answer your question while speaking to them so that they get something from this. Right. So those of you who are looking for a job, being ready is first a decision you make before it becomes a position you take. Oftentimes, the Generation Z are not ready. They're not ready for the opportunity. You see, Claudia was ready. She had a CV ready. She was ready to explain. Today, if you meet your employer of choice here today, let's say they just happened to come here, sitting next to you, and they said, where's your CV? Do you have the CV ready? Number two, after they get the CV, as an employer, this is what I'm going to say. I'm going to put the CV aside, and I'm going to ask you, so tell me about you. Many of you are not ready to tell your story, because the generation, I wouldn't say the problem is the limitation. The limitation is, you've put a limitation on yourself, is because you don't have experience, you can't get a job. Everyone has experience. You have to know how to tell the experience. Don't write cliche phrases like, I am hardworking. Describe how you're hardworking. In church, I manage 3 volunteer positions while I'm pursuing my master's, while I'm doing part-time at Multimedia University. These skills I transfer into the workplace. I hope someone was writing. Anyway, those are things that you put on your cover letter. So you don't want to just have a CV, you want to have a cover letter. The challenge the Gen Z has is they know too much, but they don't know the right things, right? And going back to what Claudia said, excellence. How you do anything is how you do everything. How you do anything is how you do everything. Gen Z, one of the challenges you have is that you want to do one thing 100%. You want to do 100% once. Instead of trying to do 1% 100 times. That is the challenge Gen Z has. They want to be sure that even the guy who sent the CV, I'm only going to send the CV unless I'm sure it will turn to something. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 25. He that striveth for the mastery must be temperate in all things, discipline. So you need to be disciplined. How many applications are you sending per day? Have you improved? Have you looked at it? What has changed in your CV in the last 2 months? If your CV hasn't changed in 2 months, you're in trouble. If your cover letter has not changed in 1 month, you have lived. You have had an exposure. Another thing you can put on your cover letter is trending topics. As an employer, I was speaking at a public university and I told the students, and I'll do a sample question here. How many people in here who are looking for jobs know about AFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area? Let me see by show of hands. 2, 3, 4. How many people know what ESG is? Wow. 1. How many people know what DEI is? 1. Silence. So you're not ready for the job. Because you're coming into a business environment who are tackling issues that are affecting an entire industry. And if you don't even know what is happening in the industry, no one is going to hire you. So you need to know what is happening, not just on TikTok or what the latest trend is on Twitter. Someone is writing the things that I said. Oh, thank you, sir. Kudos to you. You need to know what are the trending topics in the industry. So even on your cover letter, you can write and say, the insurance industry is growing by this % etc. And I see from your strategic plan, you're trying to capture 10% of the market. Here's an idea. You don't have to wait till you get to the interview. Are you following me? Mamo, am I speaking the right things, right? So the challenge I have for you, Gen Z, and people who are looking for jobs is try to do 1% 100 times. Try and improve on your application every day. Try and improve on the languaging. Am I saying this right? Read it from a distance. When I say I'm hardworking, can someone understand what that means? Have I displayed? This is why when we put out job adverts, we say demonstratable skills. You must demonstrate you have the skill of hardworking. Don't tell me you're hardworking. That's very subjective. How will I prove that? And I'm not going to call you to an interview for you to tell me how you're hardworking. Waste of time. Move on to the next person. Someone who is showing me and demonstrating to me that they have the ability to be hardworking, I am interested in having a conversation with them. So that is what Gen Z, it's just a little bit of tweak that is needed.
All right, and we want to now wrap it up on a very positive note before we pick a few questions, especially on the advantage that the children of God have, even as they seek to excel in their different fields. And what he's saying about us being ready being ready all the time. If you're saying you're looking for a job and I ask you what kind of a job, most people will say any job. There's no any job. If I have a company and you come and tell me I can do anything, honestly, I don't want anyone who can do anything. I want to see the value that you can add to my company. And I'll just quickly give you a story. Before my first job, getting a job as a journalist, she will tell you it's very difficult. All right, it's not easy. You'll fast and pray, and it's still not easy. But I remember, like you said, when you know that the Lord, He's directing you. I read the Bible, the story of the 4 lepers, and they were saying, if we stay here, we are going to die, right? But if we go, we have 2 options. We will either die or survive. Those people, our enemies, may even have mercy on us and let us live. And so they took the step of faith and started going. And you can remember the story, if you've read that part, that now, as they were walking, the Lord now acted. The enemies felt that there are chariots coming, and they flew. And so they had food in plenty. So have you taken a step before you would say, there's no God, the Lord is not answering my prayers? You're just fasting and praying. You don't have your CV. You're not sending out. You're not speaking with people. You're not networking. You come to church and you leave at the end of the service. So that's being ready. But anyway, let's end up on a very positive note. I mean, the assurance that we are in the Lord, we have the favor of the Lord is upon us, and we shall excel, because the Bible says that we are the heads and not the tails. We are the first, and we are not going to be the last. So maybe an encouragement to the young people as they continue maybe looking their jobs and working on their businesses, on the assurance that we have in God, that whatever we touch shall be blessed. Maybe I can start from that end. Claudia?
I'm on this pulpit today because I've come to speak to people in this congregation who could be struggling with their faith like I have in the past decade, to where I can firmly sit here and tell them that God is real and is a possibility. And that is what I want to tell them, that we've been called to become the salt of the earth. And when I think about what God has called me to do, is to do what white people did to us, to colonize us, or to become an ambassador, to represent God's kingdom. If you're an ambassador, even if your country is derelict, you will drive a car like, I've seen a very beautiful wine red BMW outside here. So the flag of your country is going to be put on a car like that one that's outside. And you will stay in the best address in that country where you are. So I believe that I'm God's child, and I believe that family. And if he says that I'm salt, then I am salt. That means that I'm going to be influential in this world. When I was telling you about my weird mind, I was speaking to anybody in this congregation who has a neurodivergent mind, because my mind is neurodivergent. I'm speaking to you, and I'm telling you, you've been called. If you're God's child, if you're representing God's kingdom, you've been sent. If I'm on a mission, the people who've sent me provide for me. So God is going to provide for us, and that's what I want to live. That's what I want to live for you today. Of course, there's little foxes that have been stealing, our joy from the vineyards that we are. But let's deal with those little foxes by leaning to the strength of God, learning more and more on how to depend on him, and asking him on how you can be a salt and light in this generation. It's going to be possible. Even right now where you're seated and you think, what am I going to do? I've been there myself. I told you, 10 years ago at a time like this, I was jobless. Until I got things to do that weren't paying me a monthly thing, and then a few years later, I got something that was more permanent. Mm-hmm. I've been there where you're asking yourself, what is this thing? What is going on? It's going to happen for you. Mm-hmm. I want you to leave here today. Please remove your limitations on God and on yourself and go back to him and tell him, listen, I am confused, I have these weaknesses, and I want you to strengthen me in my career so that I can be a light and I can be salt. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And your winding remarks, let's take a different direction. You've been an intern. You've been able to climb the ladder to where you are right now. I know it's not been easy. There have been some ups and downs along the road. Can you address that so that we know that even those that are in the Lord, we will encounter these challenges, but again, our trust and our confidence in the Lord is the one that will keep us standing. Yeah.
My favorite, or one of my favorite characters in the Bible is Joseph. I think of Joseph, the time he was in prison, But even when he was in prison, he still saw an opportunity and just did his best while there. And after that, after some time, that paid off. So what I'll say is, whatever you do, just ask yourself, if an audit was to be done today, will I be found wanting? And another investment that you really need to do is, one thing I'll tell you, elders or those bosses up there will not grow you, be it in your businesses or in your careers. It is your peers. It is 70% likely the person you are in class with will refer you for a job, or your peer, compared to your rich uncle or your CS uncle. You need to know that. So those friends you are with, if you're in school, those friends you are with, those are your investments. If you're in church, these peers are your investments. Does the person you sit next to know what you do? Be it business, be it employment. I mean, if it is business, okay, for instance, I sell beddings. If the person next to me doesn't know that, when they need a bed sheet, they're going to buy elsewhere, am I really investing in my network? Yeah, so let's, at the end of the day, remember, make the most of wherever you are. Even in prison, make the most of it. Even if you have that almost impossible bosses, they're always there. Make the most of it. And by the way, you know, from that boss's perspective, he's very correct, or she is very correct. From your perspective is where you're seeing mountains and foxes. So, actually it is from your perspective you're seeing that. From his perspective, he's seeing something totally different, because at the end of the day, people have different perspectives and takes in life. So in short, what I'll say is challenges will always be there, because if there are no challenges, then you're not living. I mean, you wake up in the morning, who knows, you might die. Have you ever thought of someone who is sick in hospital while you're alive? So at the end of the day, every day you'll get those challenges. Think of any character in the Bible who had a smooth ride all through. I think there's none. For everyone, be it Paul, be it who. Paul was in prison. I mean, even Jesus himself was crucified. So at the end of the day, it can never be a smooth ride. So what you do is, wherever you get yourself, can you make the most out of it? And even you'll be surprised, opportunities come out of those challenges. I started getting my best years in performance during COVID. I started another business during COVID. And I'll say it is successful. So at the end of the day, what I'll say is, the challenges that are there, are they get opportunities out of it? And then to the young people, what I will encourage you, if you're coming straight from campus, this is my perspective. As much as possible, try employment. There's some character development it will give you to help you in your businesses. Because I've seen when you go straight to business, you might be challenged here and there. And what you can do is, most of the time, you can even request for free and non-paid. You know, where you're not being paid, just to get that experience. You know, that person who tells you you have to be here by 8, and you're wondering what is wrong with being at 8. If I come at 9 and I leave at 4, or I leave at 6, say I've covered the same hours. But actually, those little things, they give you discipline that will help you for your career. When you're being told you have to put a comma here, not a full stop, and all those things are meaningful in life, and they will help you to go far. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you so much for that. And for you, I'll ask you, of course, to leave us with the same challenge, especially on how you've seen God come through for you when your business was down, when there were hard times during COVID. People were crying and saying, we are going through a hard time economically. What should the righteous do? And as you also leave the young people with a few tips on how they can improve themselves, because I believe all is not lost. Yeah.
All right. The advice I'll give to everyone here is, as a believer, you have the benefit of foresight, because you have a God who is the beginning and the ending. Going to the story of Joseph that Mamo was talking about, he was able to go to Pharaoh and say, there will be 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. I think as a believer, the benefit that you have is that you know God is preparing you for the bad times before they arrive. If bad times hit you and you're unprepared, you need to re-look at your situation with God. Sometimes he puts it without you being prepared, but he always prepares you. Look at the notes. Ellen White says in the book Education, page 16, that every human being created in the image of God has been given power akin to that of the Creator. Power to think and to do, and not to be mere reflectors of other men's thoughts. If Purity was to share her story here, how she got a job as a journalist, she saw a gap in a media house. They didn't have a health desk. She went in and said, I am starting the health desk, not can I. And I think that's the benefit the believers have, is that you have been given power to command. You need to command your blessings. You need to command for your positions. The job, I told you where I went to the boss and asked for a discount on the car. You know how I got the job? I went to the directory. I had a quota every day to call companies and ask for a job. Those days, sending a CV would take 3 months in the post, so calling was faster. And no one ever told me to do it. I just sat down, asked for wisdom, and I started calling. I called him and I told him what I did, but you see, it's also about preparation. I made friends with the switchboard operator. Okay, well, you may not know who that is. Yeah, but back in the day, you used to call, and someone's job was to answer phones and connect to this department and that department, right? So I made friends with her, understood what time the boss comes in the office, when is he in a good mood, when is the good day to pitch. I planned, I plot, I took data. The day when I called, I didn't even tell her. She just told me, today's the day, right? I didn't even tell her I was looking for a job. I would just call her. Imagine this lady speaking so many calls and no one says, how are you doing? I would just call her every day. I had a timer. Call and say, how is your day today? Oh, then she would complain about a customer. She keeps other customers waiting on other lines, but she was just happy to talk to someone. So that day she put me through and I told the boss, I am so-and-so, I am your new accountant. He started laughing. But I stayed the course. He said, who told you we're advertising for an accountant? I was like, no one. I just called. He said, okay, hold on. He called. He put me on a 3-way conference call with the finance director and says, here is, what's your name again? I said, Robert. He's our new accountant. Give him paperwork, let him start tomorrow. And that's, you guys are laughing. I'm very serious. This is the benefit the believer has. Command your blessings. So that is what I will encourage you, that God cannot part a Red Sea when you're not there. You need to show up there. How many of you even know you have an expert CV writer amongst you? Do you guys know that? Can I expose you? Who is an expert CV writer here? Jill, can I expose you? You're not an expert? You're good. She is. Command. Can you just wave and say, yes, now she charges, so pay her. That's business. I'll take a commission.
Thank you so much. And just to add on what he's saying, I know time is not on our side. I'm winding up in a minute, but I'll share how I've been getting my jobs. I'm a child of God. So the first job, and I'll give you a background of where I'm coming from. I'm a journalist, okay? But I was born and raised up in Ukambani. So that's where I went to school. So I had all the accent, definitely. Mmesomeshwa kwa Kikamba. You understand what I mean, yeah? And so my career is about speaking, and speaking in a language that everyone can understand. That means not having the accent, the local accent. So, and I know most of us young people, when you're told you have an accent, it kind of interferes with your esteem. I mean, you don't even want to talk. You even run away from that career completely. I went to public schools because of a long story that I cannot share right now. And so I'm coming to Nairobi for the first time. I want to be a journalist, and everyone tells you, did you go to this university? That time it was Daystar. Did you go to Daystar? You can't be in the newsroom. With this accent, try print. They only write there, okay? So I was really determined to be a TV journalist, not because of the celebrity thing, but there's a story I had seen on BBC that was about children dying of malnutrition in Turkana. And the moment that story was aired, these children got help. I mean, these organizations came in and so I come from a community where we also suffer from food crisis, Ukambani. And so I said, if I become a TV journalist then, and I do such a story, so my people can get help. So that's where I was coming from. And so telling me to go to print, ilikuwa inanikosea. I did not want to do print. Because I believed when it's, you are young, on TV, then people will come and help. So for sure, I accept I had all the accent. I did. But I didn't want to blame my parents for not affording these international schools. I said, is there a permanent condition? No. So how do I work on my accent? Google. I went on Google, and I saw advice. You need to read as many novels as possible. You need to, look for a mentor, all that. I did all that. And so my first job, I was pulled off air because I had an accent, okay? And the boss said, you have an accent. You can imagine, would you go back there? You wouldn't. So I was not fired, but I was told you can't be on air. So I continued to work, And even before I got the job, I was jobless in Nairobi. I fasted and I started to Google, and my heart directed me to this local station. And I said, I'll walk in, I will not die. I walked in, I told boldly the deputy editor-in-chief that I want to volunteer. You people don't have an established health desk, and that is what I want to bring. And he was shocked. He told me, let me talk to my boss. So he took me to the editor-in-chief. I told him the same thing. You guys have a lot of news, but you do not have an established health desk. He was also surprised. He told me, I'm taking you to our CEO. I went to his office. The same day, I told him, sir, you have a beautiful studio, you have a beautiful content, but you do not have an established health desk. He said, yeah, that's true. So I said, yes, that's what I want to give you for free. I want to volunteer. So he asked me, can you voice a story? I said, yes. He gave me a script. I voiced. He told me, start your volunteering now. So I said, I'm not dressed for, no, start now. I started my volunteering. I was good at it. In a month's time, I knew I'm now an asset. So I pulled the manipulative card. I told them, I don't have transport. I have to quit. They told me, no. They gave me a contract. And they were not even hiring. So you have to become an asset. You have to show them, and the confidence that comes when you are in the Lord, the favor of God. So when you speak wisdom. They realize we need you more than any other person in this place. So that's how I was hired. And I used to get stories for you to go on air. You must have been a reporter for like 5 years. I was an anchor for 2 months. After 2 months, I had my own show. I was in charge of the desk. And I came just the other day. So there is the advantage that comes when you know the Lord, when you know who you are, and most importantly, what you want in life. Any questions to our amazing panelists? Is it afternoon or evening now? Evening. Any question? We'll take maybe 3 because of time. Yeah? 3? Okay. There's that gentleman there. And if you feel that you need to direct your questions to any of the panelists here, feel free to mention. He's called Belle, she's called Mamo, and Claudia at the end. So please come quickly and share your question. Any other question? We're only picking 3 questions because of time.
As they come forward,
yes.
A silent question could be, how did you guys get that confidence? Let me tell you, bravery must come before mastery. Courage must come before confidence. Confidence is courage matured and transformed. Stop trying to be confident. Stop trying to ask, how do I become more confident? Be courageous. You just have to take the bold step. You cannot be confident unless you decide in your mind you're going to be courageous. So from today, write down what action you will take this week, a courageous action. Of course, don't just go into someone's workplace, make friends with the security guard first.
Please go ahead, sir.
Well, hello. My name is Marita Brian, and I have 2 questions. Question 1, I'd like to direct it to Claudia. When you spoke about career, there are times that our parents have contradicting career choices as to ours. And in the African setup, some of our parents are very demanding, they take control of almost everything. They even go to the extent of choosing what they want you to do, but you don't want. Your passion is not there. Exactly. Now my question is, how do you handle this thing? This is not your career choice, but they want it. But you also want their support while studying, and you also don't want to ruin that. How are you going to maintain that rapport, that the child-parent relationship, as well as having your career of choice? My next question is about discipline and consistency. Consistency, if I can define it in my own words, is maintaining a regular pattern of doing something. Well, in the morning we learn that if you do one thing the same way, expecting different results, then you are good as doing 1 plus minus 1, which is 0. So, if I am doing this thing consistently and it's not bringing results, if I change doing this thing, the way I'm doing it, I start doing it a different way, and I remain consistent in that way, is that consistency? Or rather, what I'm asking, explain more on consistency and discipline in this field. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Is there another question? Or we close? You do? Okay, please. Maybe we can answer that first as she comes. Claudia, I think you had mentioned on that, but maybe you can emphasize on parents' choice versus my own choice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a cousin. He was called to study pharmacy, but he wanted to study finance and BCom. But his dad prevailed and he had to study it. He wanted to go to Strath to study finance and BCom, but his father said, no, if you've been called to UON to start pharmacy, that is even better. Their career, you'll be paid. Anyway, Rogito went on and studied. He finished his pharmacy, practiced a bit. The money he made, he started going to Strath to educate himself. So there's many ways. I think the idea is to pivot from, I insist that there's nothing wrong with parents wanting something for you. In some situations, they've seen things in you that you haven't already seen in yourself. When I finished high school, I wanted to go to dance school because I thought I would have a career in dance. A true story. I wanted to have a career in dance, and my father said, never. In my home, you can't be a dancer. What is that? What are those? And I thank God that he saw me and saw all my giftings way before I could see them, and listened to him begrudgingly, because when I went to campus and started doing the things they wanted me to do, I failed fantastically the first semester. No, the first year, not the semester. The entire year I failed because I wanted to flunk out of university, until one of my lecturers called me and spoke to me. I want you to ask yourself why my parent is pushing me this way and why not this way. I need you to look at what is the reason. Some are just envious, jealous, uninformed. You must look into that. But if it's coming from a place of love, I want you to do it. And then pivot later on. You can always pivot. And that's the word for me when it comes to career in the year 2022. Pivot. From what you've been given by your parent, it's like, that's like land, like it's an heirloom. Education is like something they are giving you, they are bequeathing you that. If that's what they've decided to bequeath you, take it graciously, use it to transform your life, and then move to other things. That's what I don't know if somebody else has.
Interestingly, you know, we come from where our parents always told us, choose whatever you want. I remember when we were going to Form 3, we were being asked for subjects. Parents have been invited to school. My dad is being asked, so what is she doing? My dad is like, she's the one to decide. So we've always made the decision all through. But one thing I'll tell you, it means you are the one responsible 100%. I've always wished someone could have made a choice for me so that I blame that person. But there's no one to blame on the other side. Yeah, so at the end of the day, then I used to feel like our parents don't love us in that they're not giving us they're not telling you do this or guiding.
No.
All they could tell you is, what do you want? That was always the question. What do you want? So eventually you have no one to blame or to carry whatever they want to carry through. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Very contradicting. She longed for that. The other person did not want that. So it's okay for your parents to say what they feel. And sometimes they can be really, quote unquote, annoying, but you can have a discussion with them so that you reach a balance. So that we don't dwell on that, you can talk about consistency.
Yeah, very briefly, the paradox of consistency. How can you be told to do the same thing over and over, but if it's not producing results, it's ludicrous. That's what we call the paradox of consistency. And it happens because of the lack of understanding the context of consistency. Consistency is not so much on the action you take, but the habit you develop. That's what consistency is about. It's about, I don't know where you went. It's not so much the action you take, but it's the habit you develop. Have you been consistently sending 5 applications a day? It's not about sending 5 applications a day. It's about identifying and mastering the skill of how to send the CV. You don't just send the same CV to each, because in doing that, you have to read the company profile, read the job description, and from that, you develop the discipline of learning to discern what are interviewers looking for. How many of you who are looking for jobs ever ask yourself that question? When an interviewers are looking at applications, what are they really looking for? When they say looking for this type of person, what are they? So it's about developing the habit of inquiry, of being inquisitive. I like exercising a lot. I go to the gym very often, 4 or 5 days a week. And when it's time to work legs, the trainer tells me we're squatting. Next week, what are we doing? We're squatting. Next week, what are we doing? We're squatting. Because when we're exercising in the gym, our subconscious mind kicks in so often that I end up maybe leaning too much, leaning that, and I'm not perfecting the rep. So in the gym, we talk about mind-muscle connection. Am I connecting the action that I'm doing to the muscle that I'm using? So consistency is not just about the action you're taking. What habit am I developing? And from there, what skills do I need to tweak? So after sending 5 CVs a day for 2 weeks, I now realize, I keep seeing this question, and then you have to be intentional about the industry you're going. I keep seeing them asking about this question. Let me now go and research about this particular skill they're asking for. So that is how you use consistency to your benefit, as opposed to doing the exact same thing over and over and expecting a different result. You develop the discipline and then make some tweaks. I hope that makes sense. It made sense in my mind.
All right, a better way to wind this up. We have now to wrap it up, and I hope this discussion has somehow met your expectations. If it's not 100%, then a better percentage of it, right? And what do we say to our special panelists today? Thank you so much, Milton. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. Please make it quick. There was one more question. Sorry about that. Go ahead. All right. It's fine.
Thank you. Apology accepted. My name is Mamo Nyabochwa, and I work in the insurance sector. So thank you, Mamo, for the tidbits that you've told you've spoken about. Thank you for for all that you guys have done. My question, any of the panelists can pick it up, but I will specifically maybe, because Belle, you touched on it a little bit. You spoke on how you started, and at some point you got into depression. And my question is, most of the time when we are doing something, be it career-wise, be it social-wise, anything that we do or deal in on a day-to-day basis, we are responding to physical social stimuli, something that I can touch. It's something my boss said, something my mother said, something, I listened to a podcast, I watched a video, something. We are responding to something that is in the society and we can basically touch. When it comes to now self-assessment in all your careers across board, how do you deal with the internal? How do you deal with the inside? Because at the end of the day, there's always something on the inside that's probably even, cutting your wings. That is making you not to go to the next step because you've always been responding to what I can see. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Okay, my name is Gladys, and I have 2 questions. So one, directed to Agufana. So you spoke about inspiring dreamers so that they can be able to realize their dreams. So I really wanted you to expand on that and how you can help some of us who are dreamers so that we can be able to achieve our dreams. And then most of you spoke about Generation Z. So I was wondering, how about the other generations like millennials, pre-millennials, Generation X, who are still struggling? What do you have to say about that? Thank you.
All right. There's one more. All right.
Yeah, I know time is much spent, and it's been interesting that I almost feel like giving a testimony from everything that you guys have been speaking about. But my one question is almost related to the first question she asked. Now that you have been through all these challenges and you're in our generation where we have access to all of this information, things change so quickly and spontaneously. What is it that you particularly do as people to remain relevant? Or rather, what kind of, what we call self-development in these days that you do as people that helps you handle the frustrations, that helps you understand that maybe we are children of God and this is how we should go about it? Or are there like maybe specific materials or books that you would allude to that have helped you, of course, apart from praying and reading the Bible? My name is Rosasi. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. I'm going to distribute them. I think you'll deal with Naomi's first question and also Gladys. Naomi was asking about how to deal now with the inside, right? So that you're not always influenced by the external factors. There was also a question related to the same by Gladys on the inspiring the dreamers so that they also achieve their dreams. Please.
So I'll answer both questions this way. The battle within. And you're right. In our society, we are driven mostly by external things. We're told what to do, how to do, go get a job, go to school. Sometimes you're told which course to study, who to marry, etc. And we do not develop the skill of listening to that voice inside of us. It goes back to what I said. We operate 70 to 90% of our day at a subconscious level. The answer to dealing with the problem within: coaching, mentorship, therapy. Therapy is about bringing to your consciousness what's been going on inside. And I know when we hear the word therapy, we think, oh, I'm not crazy. And therapy is not about that. Therapy is about, and we have medical doctors here who can tell us the neuroscience behind it, Senior Dr. Adi, right? Therapy is about bringing to consciousness, because when you ruminate means you're playing over and over negative thoughts in your mind. And we're told almost 70, 80% of the thoughts we have every day are negative thoughts. It's not in your consciousness. It's still in your subconscious. So how to deal with the problem within is bringing it to your conscious mind. And you can do that a number of ways, as I said, through a mentor, through a coach, therapy, and writing. Writing. That is one of the best ways to deal with the noise within. Because you're not... When I started public speaking, the skill that I developed to become a better public speaker is not speaking, it's writing. Because writing clarifies your thought. It helps you to better know what is going through your mind. You're able to see it. And there's even science behind it, that when you write with a pen and paper, not digital. When you write with a pen and paper, there's a particular neural pathway that connects the brain to the hand. So as you're writing the thoughts, your brain is going through catharsis. It's, okay, how do I explain catharsis? It's crying. Catharsis is release, right? It's releasing the tension. So the problem within tends to build up tension within our minds, and you release it through writing, through therapy, through mentorship or having a coach. Now, to Gladys's question about the dreamers, when I talk about I work with dreamers, it again goes to that thing. A dreamer for me, there's a difference between dreaming and sleeping. When you're sleeping, you're totally unconscious. When you're dreaming, you're subconscious. So how do you bring those thoughts and those ideas to the conscious level, right? You need to first identify you can't dream without connecting to the future. You dream by connecting to the energy of a future. You can't dream without hope. And so what I do, I help people to connect to that hope, to look forward. Too often, we look back and deal with the regrets of our lives, the missed opportunities, or the bad decisions we make hound us over and over. And shamelessly, I will promote my own book. And this is why I wrote my second book, right, which is called Raise Your Hand, a millennial's guide to courageously ask for help and power to defeat the weeds of regret with personal power. Asking for help is not just about someone who's going through a mental problem. Asking for help is networking. It's learning a skill. You ask for help on how to better present yourself, how to better do so many different things. So that's one way to deal with the noise within, and also to bring out the ideas you have as a dreamer, because dreams are manifested in a community. They're not manifested in isolation. And can I just add one thing?
Yes.
For Naomi, right?
What you do to remain relevant? There was that question as well.
Before I get there,
Okay.
I have no idea why you're in the insurance industry with such a voice. You should be a voice actor. You should be voicing. You should be doing voiceover. Am I right? I do voice acting. I'm part of the Voice Actors League in Kenya, and I'm not so sure what you're doing there because it's so authentic and natural.
Yeah.
You could be voicing for BBC, Al Jazeera, all kind of stuff, and making money. Do you need an agent?
I know, right? That's very true, by the way. That's a gift right there. All right, so these other questions are 10 seconds each, because she's asking to all of us, the panelists, what do you do to remain relevant? And I'm sure that was connected to looking at the technological advancement that the world is experiencing right now. What do you do to remain relevant in your fields?
In 10 seconds, in my field. So as I said, by training, I'm in the accountancy profession, and I look at trends in the market. That's what I do to remain relevant. And I do that by networking with people from different cultures, different backgrounds, reading reports, and connecting with thought leaders, who myself is a thought leader. I seek to contribute to ongoing conversations. And I've been privileged and blessed. Like earlier this year, I was invited to a closed round door table by the International Accountancy Standards Board. That's the body that sets the standards for accountancy in the whole world. And because of my work around SMEs, they were requesting my views on how can we create a particular reporting standards just for SMEs around the world, so that we remove the onerous task of as SME dealing with the same reporting standards as Safaricom. And I'm at the table influencing how the accountancy profession will impact. This is going to be the first ever, what we call an IFRS, for those who are in that field. Any accountants? Don't leave me. Any accountants? Yes. You know IFRS, right? So it's going to be the first IFRS for SMEs. How did that come about? A few colleagues and I, we kept pushing and saying we need a standard just for small businesses. So I remain relevant by giving my ideas, networking with people, connecting on LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, please get on LinkedIn. Start following people, and those things that I said, start reading about them. ESG, DEI, after sustainable goals, start having conversations, and that's how I remain relevant.
Thank you so much for your time, Mamo. In 10 seconds, what do you do to remain relevant?
You have to keep reading. I don't know, how many are on LinkedIn? Impressive. The ones not there, what is the reason? And then when you're on LinkedIn, what are you using it for? In insurance, I'm sure now you know, for insurance, of course, 2 years ago, the trend was all about cybercrime and all that. Now we have moved to climate change and sustainable insurance. So I trust those on insurance, you are keeping yourself up to date on that areas. And there's also all those environmental liabilities and all coming up. So you have to keep yourself. And then when you pick an area, can you be so good in it in such a way when someone needs something, it is you they're looking for? Because that's the only way you're going to set yourself apart. And then just on consistency, when you talk about being consistent, it's not like the way now I'm talking about being appraised with what is happening. You being consistent doesn't mean if you used to sell by cold canvassing, that is the only thing you do. Being consistent means finding other ways of doing that thing. If you are in business using social media, you have to be able to post not just once and then you leave, you're going to sell. Every day, do at least 2 or 3 posts. And then, how are you posting? Equip yourself. And nowadays, Google offers you so many opportunities. You can learn how to do new things differently so that you can be able to achieve that. Being consistent is doing it, but not in the same way. Be agile, as in find different ways of doing the same thing. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that. And lastly, Claudia, I'll also ask you to answer the second question by Gladys. She was saying that we are talking about Generation Z. We are forgetting that the other generations are also struggling. What's your comment on that?
You will never figure it out until the day you die. There will be hungers and hungers and hungers in your social life and in your career. If there were no hungers, people would not want to grow. And hunger is a beautiful thing in you. God puts in you hungers so that you want more, because he puts things in you when you have a gift and that thing keeps on coming to you. God wants you to do it. God wanted you to write that book so that it can bless all of us. It's a hunger that was put in you. You are going to be confused when you're in campus. There's going to be specific confusions in your early 20s. Do I go straight for my master's or do I work? There's going to be confusions in your late 20s, confusions in your 30s and 40s. You will never arrive, which will bring me to what we can do to remain relevant, which is reinvent yourself. 2 women arrive. She leaves, loses the husband and the 2 sons. She comes back. She's been written out. And then she tells this woman she's come with, I want you to go to that man's house tonight. Take a shower and perfume yourself. See where she's sleeping. Put your head. And when he wakes up in the morning, do what he tells you to do. That morning, she comes, she does what she was told to do. She gets back to the conversation. They come back, and then she said, don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, bitter, for the Lord has dealt bitterly with me. Some of you here, that's what you're saying. Call me Mara, the Lord has dealt bitterly. No, that's not what you're going to do. You're going to look for someone who's sleeping, put your head there, wake up in the morning and reinvent yourself. We are going to reinvent yourself over and over again. There are several ways to express your intellect, several ways to express your talent. Me, when this thing comes down to I'll come tomorrow as a poet. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. And when I wake up the following morning, I can even, Jill, I can out-sing you, you know. I'm joking. Reinvention. Amen. Reinvention at every point. Because you will always struggle, but try and reinvent yourself. And one of the ways to reinvent yourself is some of us, we stay too long in one place. Maybe you need to move from one insurance company to Stanbic Bank. Stagnation is wrong. You rot. You rot. I don't want that for anybody. Perhaps if you've stayed in some place for too long and nothing is happening, you need to change. Maybe you need to change cities. Mm-hmm. Countries, towns, because some of you have limited yourself to just this country and this town and this city. There is so much you can do with a Kenyan education. May God bless you.
Amen.